Discover the incredible strength hidden in 5 adverse moments. Uncover surprising Stoic wisdom. Emily stepped into the hospital, the air thick with exhaustion and the murmur of underfunded desperation. Today was different. The weight of the world pressed against her shoulders. After 13 years of serving, juggling the roles of a dedicated nurse and a single mother, she had finally anticipated a promotion, a chance to leap beyond the endless cycle of caring without a voice. But as she walked past the patient rooms, the reality hit. The intern she mentored, with far less experience but influential connections, was the one chosen. Her heart twisted in disbelief, a cocktail of resentment and self-doubt stirring violently within her. What have I done wrong? Raced through her mind like a cold whisper, leaving her insides churning. The hospital's worn walls echoed the struggles of heroes invisible to the outside world, but in that moment, she felt invisible too. Her ambition seemed like a dream locked in an unreachable vault. Did her years of dedication mean nothing? The sight of her father's frail form at home blurred her vision. He had always been her rock, yet on days like this, she felt adrift, questioning if she was enough to be his daughter, a mother, and a nurse fighting in a broken system. Am I truly cut out for this? She thought, knots of anxiety tightening around her chest. Then came the moment the email chimed softly, revealing not just news of her disappointment but a reminder of her vulnerabilities. Her anger flared briefly, then crumbled into despair. What could she do now? Should she congratulate the intern, acting graciously in the face of her own internal fracture? Or should she burn with indignation and let it seep into her bones? The internal conflict thundered loudly, the uncertainty amplifying like an alarm, drowning out the calmer instincts she once instead chose to embrace. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amidst the relentless pressure, she found herself in the small break room that overlooked the parking lot, a picturesque view of a life she seemingly couldn't reach. That's when Ruth appeared, a mentor in her own right, an elderly volunteer with stories of resilience etched in every wrinkle. Every setback is a setup for a comeback, Emily, she said, her voice smooth like honey, laced with wisdom that resonated in her weary heart. Yet, as encouraging as Ruth was, the question lingered: how could her spirit rise when life continually flicked at her heels? Then calamity struck. A patient's panic led to chaos, and Emily fought to save a life, her heart racing, every moment stretching into eternity. In the gripping fear of possibly losing someone forever, she realized that her impetus had changed. The weight of everything she cared for pressed down on her, intensifying the urgency of her dreams. But as she stumbled home on the grayest of nights, she couldn't shake off the gnawing doubt that wrapped around her like a heavy shroud. The proposal she envisioned still flickered in her mind, but with each passing breath, so did the chilling thought: am I a voice worth hearing at all? She stood at the brink of her aspirations, faced with the tragic fracture in her resolve, pondering if she could turn the pain into purpose. When she got home to find her late mother's old notes in the attic, could this discovery illuminate the darkness shadowing her self-worth? What if the treasures within those studies meant she could fight on not just for herself, but for the legacy of care she desperately wanted to build? Elizabeth's story had unraveling potential. Could hers? Each question threaded tight within her psyche, echoing against the walls of fear too loud to ignore. With her heart heavy, Emily faced the reality that she could either step into her destiny or remain shackled by her doubts. Emily climbed the creaky attic stairs, her heart racing as shadows danced around her in the dim light. The musty scent of old paper and forgotten memories filled the air, mixing with the lingering sorrow of her recent disappointment. She needed a lifeline, something tangible to anchor her when everything else felt adrift. Even as she sifted through weathered journals and faded clippings, uncertainties coursed through her, mingling with hope. Could her mother's wisdom guide her in navigating her own tumult? She opened the first journal, flipping through pages filled with thoughts that had once spilled seamlessly from her mother's pen. The neat script told stories of struggles and triumphs, bridging a life of caring with fierce advocacy. Each sentence was imbued with the essence of a woman who had fought for her place in a world indifferent to the soft-spoken, yet fervent voices of nurses. A familiar flutter of inspiration ignited within Emily. Her mother had been a voice that mattered. Could she channel that legacy into her own ambitions? As she read, a phrase caught her eye: "Courage thrives where care is abundant." A lump formed in her throat. Courage, what a distant feeling it felt at that moment. Yet, the words acted as a gentle push, urging her to ask the difficult questions. Was her career merely a job, or could it be a call to something bigger? What if every setback was not a reflection of her worth but a test of her resolve to rise, to find her voice among the chaos? With the journal clutched to her chest, Emily descended the stairs, each step a physical reminder of the decision she was about to face. She knew the chatter of doubt would be relentless, whispering that her efforts would lead to nothing more than a string of failures. But for the first time that day, fierce determination surged. She would confront this rising tide of uncertainty, not by fading into the background but by claiming her space. The next morning at the hospital, she faced her intern, the one whose ascent had momentarily crushed her spirits. Instead of resentment, she approached with intent. "Can we talk?" she asked, her tone steadier than she felt inside. They settled into a quiet corner of the nurse's station, and Emily found herself sharing her thoughts on effective patient care and the passion that had led her down this path. To her surprise, the intern listened with genuine interest, nodding as if he grasped the depth of Emily's experience. By the end of the conversation, Emily realized something profound. Sharing her wisdom didn't diminish her own voice, it amplified it. Planting seeds of knowledge in her intern felt revolutionary, a genuine legacy cultivating in real time, proving that her passion for nursing could coexist with her ambitions. Emerging from the exchange, a new idea sparked in her mind: why not create a mentorship program within the hospital? A space where seasoned nurses could guide younger ones, rooting the foundation in experience? But as excitement coursed through her, so did the familiar wave of doubts. Would the hospital's administration take her ideas seriously? Could she lead when her own confidence often wavered? Her mind raced with possibilities, yet the looming question was unavoidable: was she prepared to risk rejection if it led to something greater? With a deep breath, she felt the tension in her body tighten. It was now or never. She needed to decide whether to step forward into the unknown or retreat behind well-worn walls of insecurity. As she walked the hallways, every nerve within her hummed with the weight of choice. There, before her, stood not just a path for her career, but an opportunity too dauntless to ignore. Surely, her mother's spirit hovered somewhere within, whispering encouragement. The moment of truth approached, and Emily was intent on seizing it. Little did she know, this venture would challenge her like never before. But with the proposal only an idea on paper, could she muster the courage to face the judgment of those who might not understand her vision? In that pivotal moment, Emily prepared for a confrontation she couldn't yet see, knowing that her path ahead would require nothing less than the fierce persistence to challenge the very fabric of her professional landscape. As she stood by the nurse's station, Emily gripped her proposal tightly, its edges crinkling under her anxious fingers. She glanced around the bustling hospital, each passing nurse, doctor, and staff member embodying a whirlwind of determination, yet she felt like an outsider, her voice muted by the anxiety swirling within her. Doubt crept in, threatening to drown the embers of her courage in an overwhelming tide of fear. Would they laugh? Dismiss her as inexperienced? It was a classic internal battle, one she'd faced countless times before. Dismissing the negative chatter required more than a fleeting resolve, it demanded a radical shift in her perception of self-worth. Emily inhaled deeply, feeling the air fill her lungs as she tried to anchor herself in the moment. She had forgotten how essential it was to transform fear into fuel. Her mother's words echoed in her mind: courage thrives where care is abundant. Care for herself, as much as for others. With a new sense of purpose, she approached Melinda, her supervisor, who was known for her sharp intelligence and even sharper tongue. Emily rehearsed her pitch under her breath, barely registering the busy corridor ahead. She reached the supervisor's desk, where Melinda was engrossed in charts. A moment's hesitation almost turned her back, but she knew no growth came from retreat. "Melinda," she began, her voice stronger than she felt, "could I have a moment of your time?" The older woman looked up, brow raised, as if gauging whether this was worth her attention. "Make it quick, Emily. I have rounds soon." Those simple words could have shriveled Emily's resolve, but instead, they ignited a fire. She took a breath, summoning every ounce of conviction from within. "I have an idea for a mentorship program that could empower our newer nurses while creating a more supportive environment for everyone. Melinda leaned back, crossing her arms. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Emily's heartbeat pounded loudly in her ears. "Go on," Melinda said finally, curiosity flickering amidst her skepticism. With unexpected fervor, Emily outlined her vision, detailing how experienced nurses could guide interns through the complexities of patient care, fostering a collaborative rather than competitive atmosphere. Passion rippled through her words, and for the first time, she recognized the potency of her vision not just for her, but for the entire nursing community within the hospital. Melinda listened intently, but Emily could feel the invisible wall of doubt mounting as she took in her supervisoress body language. Then came the question that could shake the very foundations of her initiative: and why would anyone want to listen to you, Emily? You're still finding your footing. The challenge landed heavily, but something flickered inside her, a realization that this was precisely the confrontation she feared, yet needed. She straightened her spine, meeting Melinda's gaze. "Because I've been where they are. I understand their struggles, and I want to help them navigate those challenges. If we want to create a more nurturing culture here, we need to share the knowledge we've gained." Melinda's scrutiny softened slightly, the corners of her mouth lifting in contemplation. "Your conviction is admirable. But can you recruit others to join you? It won't succeed if it's just your voice." The question hung in the air, a challenge and an opportunity wrapped in one. Could Emily rally her experienced colleagues, people she admired, to enroll in something wholly new? Fear threatened to spill over once again, but the prospect of stepping into a leadership role filled her with something deeper than apprehension: liberation. "I'll prove I can," she replied, determination firming her voice. As Melinda nodded thoughtfully, the tension in the air shifted, and Emily felt a spark of hope flicker to life. That evening, she began drafting flyers, a tangible manifestation of her idea, while mentally outlining potential mentors she would approach. Yet under the surface, springs of anxiety twisted and turned, whispering doubts as she prepared to confront her peers. Could she truly galvanize others to support her mission? The stakes were rising, her resolve would be tested as she prepared for a new level of accountability. With each step she took toward her vision, a more profound question loomed: how deeply could she tap into her own capabilities when faced with the judgments of those she revered? Determined but uncertain, she felt herself at the precipice of change, and the next move could define her career in ways she had yet to grasp. But with every call to action, there lay an invitation to step into a version of herself she had only begun to discover. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the roots of doubt tether her back? The unfolding dilemma lingered like a shadow, leaving Emily poised for a pivotal moment that would either reinforce her ascent or force her to reckon with her own limitations. Emily stared at the blank screen on her laptop, a blinking cursor taunting her with the sheer enormity of her task. Each time she attempted to dive into drafting the flyer for her mentorship program, her thoughts swirled like leaves caught in a gust of wind, untamed, erratic, and just out of reach. She couldn't afford to waver now. The time had come to shift from mere conception to action, yet the pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders. Her heart raced as images of her colleagues floated through her mind. Experienced, intimidating, fortified by years of practice. Would they view her as a peer worthy of leading such an initiative, or simply a novice with fleeting ambitions? The uncertainty gnawed at her, each unanswered question only adding to her growing anxiety. But within that same anxiety lay a pulsating current of resolve to prove not only her vision but also her worth. In a moment of impulsivity, she decided to reach out to Lisa, one of the most seasoned nurses with whom she had worked closely during her shifts. Their discussions often sparked into energy-filled debates about patient care, and Emily wondered if Lisa might be the cornerstone of her program. She sent a quick message, inviting Lisa for coffee to discuss an idea, and hit send before second-guessing herself. Emily's phone buzzed almost instantly. "Sure. Let us meet in the cafe at noon," came Lisa's reply, and Emily felt a surge of adrenaline. The meeting would either solidify her plans or force her to revise the entire structure of her proposal. She arrived at the cafe early, taking a moment to breathe in the comforting smell of fresh coffee and baked goods. Emily's mind danced with excitement mixed with apprehension. What if Lisa had her reservations? What if she wasn't convinced? In that moment, she realized the essence of her transformation wasn't just about promoting a program, it was about fostering a belief in collaboration among nurses. When Lisa entered, she wore her friendly smile that instantly eased Emily's tension. They exchanged pleasantries, and as they sat down with their beverages, Emily felt her heartbeat steadying. "I appreciate you meeting with me," Emily began, a rehearsed script fading into the background of genuine enthusiasm. "I've been working on a mentorship program to help newer nurses settle in more effectively. I think it could really reshape our environment." Sipping her coffee, Lisa listened intently, her brow furrowing as Emily articulated her vision. "I want to create an atmosphere where we all share our knowledge, regardless of experience level. It's about connection, not competition," she concluded, her words flowing with newfound clarity. Lisa raised her eyebrows, visibly impressed. "That's ambitious, Emily. But you know it's not easy to get people on board. They have to feel the value of something like this." Despite her initial nerves, Emily's conviction ignited. "I know, and that's why I want to gather a group of us to support it together. I'm hoping you could be one of the mentors. Your experience would be invaluable." A silence enveloped them, heavy with contemplation. Emily wrestled internally, scrutinizing Lisa's facial expressions for any hint of reluctance. But Lisa's eyes sparkled with a hint of intrigue. "Count me in if you can show me you're serious about making this happen. You need to have a solid plan and some real data to back you up," she said, her tone both pragmatic and encouraging. This was a revelation, a pivotal moment. Emily felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and fear. Now she was accountable not just to herself but to someone she respected immensely. She had no time to falter. As they delved into specifics, Emily discovered hidden strengths, an ability to articulate ideas clearly under pressure and a knack for drawing out insights from experienced colleagues. Ideas flowed, unexpected and electric, solidifying her belief that this program could indeed flourish. After their meeting, a swirl of hopeful adrenaline coursed through her veins. However, the reality of Lisa's conditions providing a comprehensive strategy delivered a gut punch of undeniable challenge. With resolve glimmering anew, Emily returned to her desk, ready to gather data and structure her proposal. There was no turning back, and anticipation surged for the challenges ahead. As she jotted down notes and research ideas, a singular thought anchored itself in her mind. She'd have to confront not just the opposition she might face from colleagues but also the self-doubt that had lingered like an unwelcome ghost. Ready or not, she would step up to the plate, knowing that personal growth often lay hidden beneath layers of discomfort. The prospect of failure flickered, yet so did the tantalizing light of successful change. But the real challenge loomed larger than any single proposal. Could she truly ascend and champion change when stripped bare of comforts and assurances? With her heart pounding, Emily prepared for what lay ahead and wondered how closely the real test would reflect her vision for her nursing career. The next phase was sure to reveal whether her efforts would translate into action or falter along the way. Emily awoke the next morning with thoughts of the meeting with Lisa swirling in her mind. The excitement from their discussion had yet to wear off, but so too did the weight of expectation. With a notebook in one hand and coffee in the other, she sat down to outline her strategic plan, determined to turn her abstract concept into a concrete proposal. The first step involved gathering data on mentorship programs that had proven successful in similar healthcare settings. Each click of her keyboard felt like a hammer striking an anvil, reverberating through her sense of purpose and ambition. Yet, underneath the focus lay the uncomfortable churning of anxiety. What if the research revealed that her idea was flawed? What if her efforts to champion change ended up exposing her weaknesses instead? As Emily sifted through articles, she discovered statistics that illuminated the profound impact mentorship could have on professional development. Nurses paired with mentors reported increased job satisfaction, better patient care, and lower turnover rates. It was a validation that fueled her resolve. Yet, with every revelation came a nagging fear: would her colleagues value this enough to invest their time? Determined to confront this obstacle, she devised a plan to gauge the interest of her coworkers. Emily drafted a brief survey to share during their next team meeting. It was an impulsive choice, stepping beyond her comfort zone to solicit direct feedback. Still, she grappled with the reality that she would be exposing both her idea and herself to scrutiny. As she prepared for the team meeting, the morning wore on, and with it came the realization of her vulnerability. Would she be met with enthusiasm, skepticism, or even ridicule? The looming potential for rejection made her stomach twist. Yet, the desire to cultivate change outweighed her apprehension. When the meeting finally arrived, she took a seat among her colleagues, the tension palpable. With every voice that spoke, she felt her confidence rise and fall like the ebb and flow of a tide. It became increasingly clear that the dynamic of their interactions had formed a school of thought supportive of tradition rather than progress. When her moment came, Emily stood up, clutching her papers so tightly her knuckles turned white. She felt the collective eyes of her colleagues assessing her. Could she bear the weight of their expectations? "I've been working on a mentorship program," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not just about guidance, it's about fostering a community where we can share skills and grow together." A murmur rippled through the room. She took a breath, steadying herself. "I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you feel that this could work, and what barriers might we face?" Unexpectedly, the response was mixed. Some leaned in, intrigued by the potential, while others voiced concerns about time constraints. As the dialogue unfolded, Emily's instincts kicked in. She navigated their questions with a mixture of honesty and openness, acknowledging each concern while subtly steering the conversation toward the benefits of mentorship. Her confidence grew with each interaction, revealing a hidden talent for communication. However, a challenge soon surfaced. A voice from the back of the room, skeptical and biting, interrupted the flow. "Emily, do you really think this is going to work with how busy we already are? We need more than just your enthusiasm." The comment struck her like a punch, momentarily knocking her off balance. Emily paused, feeling exposed. This was not just a test of her idea but a confrontation with the very doubts that had haunted her. Yet the intensity of her previous discussions with Lisa shot through her like a jolt of caffeine. "I understand your concern," she replied, feeling the warmth of determination spread through her chest. "But imagine how much smoother things would run if we actively supported each other. I believe the investment will pay off for all of us." To her relief, the floor began buzzing with murmurs of consideration. That single moment of self-defense transformed her image from novice to potential leader. She finally got a glimpse of the shift she could inspire. Yet even as encouragement surfaced, she felt the weight of her responsibility grow heavier. After the meeting, Emily stepped outside, her heart racing. She'd weathered the storm of that engagement, but the path stretched on. Was this moment enough to overcome the hurdles ahead? Where would the opposition come from next, and how would she handle it? A thought echoed. A challenge could either shape her growth into a formidable advocate for her proposal or shatter her resolve into pieces. Emily knew she had to steel herself for what lay ahead, whatever it may entail. As she contemplated her next moves, a new sense of urgency gripped her. What other hidden barriers awaited exploration? Emily spent the next few days buried in research and reflection. The adrenaline from her last encounter sparked a fire within her, urging her to probe deeper into the nuances of mentorship. She began seeing her work not just as an initiative but as a personal journey that reflected her growth and resilience. The self-doubt that once clouded her thoughts morphed into a catalyst for improvement. She meticulously compiled feedback from the meeting, attempting to decipher the concerns that were voiced and the enthusiasm that flickered among her colleagues. Each survey response became a puzzle piece, a way to understand not just her coworkers, but also the dynamics of their professional culture. The realization that their skepticism stemmed more from fear of change than lack of interest took root in her mind. Real, systemic resistance existed, but so did the opportunity to bridge the divide. Determined to address the anxieties raised during the team meeting, Emily shifted her focus. She crafted a master presentation intending to frame her proposal not solely from her perspective but in a way that could resonate with everyone. She analyzed what her team valued: efficiency, collaboration, patient outcomes. With these threads, she began weaving them into her narrative, adjusting her plan to incorporate practice groups that would streamline skill sharing while minimizing disruption to their workloads. The stakes felt higher than ever as she prepared for her next encounter. Megan, a tenured nurse, was a powerhouse of experience yet often a harsh critic. If she could get Megan's backing, the proposal would gain the vital credibility it needed. Emily realized she had to speak to both Megan's expertise and her concerns directly, rather than letting her intimidation hold her back. Emily approached Megan during lunch, her heart racing with anticipation. As she set the stage for their discussion, she noticed how her palms glistened with sweat. "Could we talk about mentorship?" she began, feeling a tremor in her tone. "I really value your insights and would love to hear your perspective." Megan regarded her with a scrutinizing look before nodding cautiously. As they spoke, Emily found herself surprised by how the conversation began to flow. She focused on listening, digesting Megan's ideas about the burdens of current workloads and the importance of practicality in proposals. This engagement evolved from a potentially adversarial encounter into a valuable brainstorming session, and Emily felt herself redirecting doubts into actionable insights. Almost instinctively, she began to incorporate Megan's advice into her proposal. By allowing space for input from respected colleagues, she didn't just solidify her initiative but also turned the tide of resistance. This newfound collaboration uncovered a warmth between them that Emily hadn't anticipated. However, as they drafted potential solutions together, the door swung open to yet another challenge. "But you know," Megan said, her voice lowering condescendingly, "this sounds great in theory, but what if few people want to adapt? Change isn't easy for most here." For a fleeting moment, the doubt reared its head, but Emily mournfully reminded herself that great victories come from correct navigation through adversity. "I believe this could work," she asserted. "But I'll need your support, and we'll need to make it easy for everyone to participate. Just imagine the kind of influence we could wield as a united front." At that moment, Emily felt the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. She was not just advocating her vision, she was becoming an agent for change. Her ambitions were now aligning with her awakening sense of duty. The initial fear that stammered within her transformed into discipline forged in connection and respect, a realization that her effort, however challenging, could lead to tangible benefits. For all of the days turned into a blur of revisions and dialogues. Each discussion felt like a dance between enthusiasm and trepidation, but it was during one late-night brainstorming session that everything shifted dramatically. A sudden email notification interrupted her thoughts. It was from Lisa, asking Emily to meet and discuss potential sponsorship for her initiative. Realization hit her: this was the external validation that could elevate her proposal into something extraordinary. Yet, with every ounce of excitement, an apprehensive voice whispered in her mind, asking if she was truly ready to step into a realm where visibility came hand in hand with vulnerability. As she stared at the glaring screen, she understood that this meeting represented a critical juncture for her journey. Would her newfound confidence hold against the rigors of corporate scrutiny? Determined to find out, Emily took a deep breath and replied, setting the stage for what lay ahead. The prospect was both exhilarating and daunting. This was the moment she had been preparing for, and it was time to step boldly into her future. A thought lingered in her mind: what sacrifices would this new chapter require, and would they ultimately lead to empowerment or undoing? The weight of curiosity and anticipation hung in the air, propelling her forward into the unknown. Emily arrived at the cafe for her meeting with Lisa, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was not just another discussion about her proposal, it was a chance to elevate her vision, to gain traction and legitimacy in a sphere where her voice had remained unheard for far too long. As she scanned the room, searching for Lisa, she couldn't help but notice the vibrant conversations around her and the clang of coffee cups. Each sound felt like a reminder of her place among a multitude, a contrasting backdrop to the weight of her ambitions. Once seated, Lisa greeted her warmly, yet Emily could sense the undercurrent of business intent in the poised demeanor. "I've been hearing good things about your proposal," Lisa began, her eyes sparkling with interest. But that enthusiasm clashed sharply with Emily's internal narrative, a storm of self-doubt brewing just beneath the surface. With each word Lisa spoke, Emily fought to maintain focus. She listened carefully, processing the subtle nuances of feedback that both encouraged and challenged her thinking. Lisa posed thoughtful questions that forced Emily to confront the weakest aspects of her strategy, questions that sliced through her defenses. "What is your plan for addressing resistance? People aren't going to meld into your vision without a strong incentive," Lisa noted, leaning back in her chair. Emily felt exposed, her plan laid bare and vulnerable. She started, hesitating. The implications of unanswered questions hung in the air like thick fog. Her mind whirred, searching for confidence amidst the uncertainty. Would her answers hold? What if they fell flat? Realizing she needed to face this volatility head-on, Emily took a breath and summoned her resolve. "I plan to incorporate feedback actively. It's about building bridges, not directing traffic. I want them to feel invested, not just employees following orders," she stated, her voice steadier than she felt. Lisa nodded appreciatively. That essay's solid foundation, but what else? It's not just about collaboration. A faint smile crept across her face, hinting at a challenge. In that moment, Emily recognized a deeper truth: vulnerability and visibility were entwined. To succeed, she would have to bear her uncertainties. Her determination flared. You're right. I must create a sense of urgency surrounding the shift. I can integrate changing patient needs and how mentorship can elevate our standards. It's crucial they see that this is a necessity, not just an added task. As Emily laid out her ideas, visions of a brighter future began to form. With each articulation, doubts within her were eclipsed by a burgeoning belief in her capabilities. Lisa listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. Her silence was almost deafening, as if she were weighing each of Emily's words rigorously. Yet, the conversation twisted when Lisa presented a question that felt like a gut punch. What if this all fails? What's your backup plan? The sharpness of it sliced through Emily's confidence momentarily. The fear crept back in what if she became an example of failure? But alongside it emerged a tougher resolve. I can pivot, adjust the framework, even step back completely if necessary. Failure is part of the process. But I will fight for this, for mentorship. Purposeful change is worth the risk. With that declaration, Emily felt a shift within herself. The thought of failure no longer loomed as a monster; instead, it became an integral part of her journey. It signified growth, courage, and a willingness to embrace the complete spectrum of leadership. Dogs barking in the nearby park echoed through the cafe, pulling Emily momentarily from her thoughts. She realized the noise was comforting, a reminder that life continued beyond her immediate concerns. Lisa leaned in, a glimmer of respect reflected in her features. That's the spirit I want to see. But you need to nail the metrics. Stakeholders want data. Can you provide that? As they finalized their discussion, Emily felt the unmistakable fire of engagement coursing through her veins. Each question from Lisa had acted as a catalyst, pushing Emily further into both introspection and action. When she left the cafe, her mind buzzed with possibilities and challenges alike. With newfound clarity, she recognized that this journey was filled with uncertainties, yet it was her resilience that would guide her through. As she prepared for her next steps, two thoughts rattled in her mind. Was she truly equipped to weave metrics into a compelling narrative? More pressing, would vigilance against her own doubts be enough to fortify her against future critiques? The weight of these reflections bore down even as she forged ahead, a sense of urgency driving her to anticipate what lay on the horizon. Her next significant challenge was rapidly approaching. The following morning, Emily sat at her desk, a pile of notes and scattered ideas surrounding her. The air was tinged with determination, but it also carried the weight of uncertainty. The sunlight streaming through the window provided a stark contrast to the shadows of doubt lurking in her mind. Lisa had pushed her hard in that cafe, and she felt raw from the exposure. She knew she had to refine her proposal and develop the metrics Lisa had stressed as critical for buy-in. Yet, even as she began drafting, something deep within her resisted the neatness of numbers. She sighed and picked up her notepad, flipping through the pages filled with her sketches of ideas. Confidence dulled by perfectionism formed a thick barrier in her mind. What if the metrics weren't enough? What if they didn't resonate? Each what if spiraled into another, chaining her to the past failures that had haunted her. Suddenly, a name struck her, a mentor from her past, a woman whose wisdom had often seemed unshakable to Emily. In a chance conversation years ago, she had shared insights about resilience and the power of learned adversity. Tapping into that reservoir of knowledge now felt essential. There had to be strength in those moments of difficulty, even in failure. It was a frame of mind Emily desperately needed. With determination rekindled, she reached for her phone and scrolled through her contacts, pausing at her mentor's name. Unsure, she began to type. Could we meet? I want to discuss something important. After hitting send, Emily felt both relief and anxiety. Reaching out was a risk. The day passed in a blur, and her mind shifted back and forth between her proposal and the memories of past struggles. She remembered the time she had presented an initiative at her previous job and how it had met derision rather than support. She had felt abandoned, but from that moment of humiliation, she had learned the necessity of embracing feedback however harsh. It was vital now to recall those lessons. She jotted down her thoughts, reflecting on how adversity had shaped her approach. By the evening, a response from her mentor pinged with excitement. "Absolutely. Let us meet on Friday. Can't wait to hear what's on your mind." Emily smiled, her anxiety around numbers simmering below the surface. As the week progressed, she immersed herself in crafting her proposal further, infusing it with the lessons she had learned through her earlier setbacks. She began to see metrics not just as figures but as potential stories waiting to be told. Each numerical representation could convey the urgency of change she sought to implement. How could they illustrate the transformation from current stagnation to vibrant growth? Late one night, with exhaustion tugging at her eyelids, she completed a draft of her proposal, incorporating a graph that tracked projected outcomes and a narrative around the personal stories of those impacted. The blend of data with genuine human experience felt like magic. Yet, as she reviewed her work, an unsettling thought crept in. What if Lisa, or anyone else, dismissed her narrative as mere fluff? Would the emotional aspect dilute the analytical seriousness she needed to uphold in her arguments? This desperation to balance her passion with professionalism weighed heavy. Friday arrived, and as she stepped into the cafe, the buzzing atmosphere was both stimulating and intimidating. Each table occupied by enthusiastic discussions seemed to reflect the very essence of what she was pursuing: connection. When she spotted her mentor, seated at their usual table with an encouraging smile, her fears momentarily faded. As they delved into conversation, Emily communicated her journey, from the inception of her proposal to her strategic plans. Her mentor listened intently, offering occasional nods, but her eyes sparkled with a deeper insight. After Emily finished, her mentor leaned forward. "You're digging for something meaningful deeper than numbers alone. That's powerful, Emily. But, there's always a but. You need to carry that conviction fiercely." "What? Will you do if faced with direct confrontation over your vision?" The question hung in the air, stiffening the conversation. Emily felt the familiar weight of uncertainty pushing down. She knew this moment could lead to a pivotal introspection or a detour into doubt. How she responded to this challenge might define her path forward. Anticipation crackled around her as she formulated an answer in her mind. Would she confront the fears that bubbled up or allow them to dictate her path? A palpable tension filled the space, her mentor's piercing gaze urging her onward. In her heart, Emily understood. The real test lay not just in metrics or rebuttals but in firmly embracing her vision, doubts and all, ready to defend it. But could she summon the conviction she needed when it mattered most? With every new insight, a realization dawned: she had more in her than she had ever recognized. But uncovering it would demand not just courage but a continual willingness to face every adversarial moment, to draw on those lessons learned in the depths of her past failures. In that moment of confrontation with herself, she felt the stirrings of strength. The decision loomed. Would she fearlessly step into her role as a transformative leader or let past self-doubt sabotage her potential? The cafe's noise faded as she focused on the question, the answer hovering on the precipice of her thoughts. It was time to decide, leading her toward a critical moment of self-discovery. As she eyed her mentor, Emily felt the pulse of potential vibrating through her. What truths, long buried, awaited to emerge? Emily took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. Her mentor waited patiently, the silence between them heavy with expectation. The question rippled through her mind: what would she do if her vision was challenged? The truth surfaced with a clarity that shocked her. "I'd fight for it," she said, her own voice catching her off guard. "I'd fight for what I believe is possible. I owe it to myself, and to those who need this change." Her mentor smiled, approval radiating from her expression. "That's the spirit, Emily. But you need to prepare for the pushback. Insight is precious, but it's your conviction that will turn it into action." Emily nodded, her heart racing. She felt the shimmer of resolve flickering to life within her. The soft hum of conversations enveloping them began to pulse in sync with her thoughts. Every member of that crowded cafe was engaged in their own struggles and aspirations just like her. If she could tap into that collective energy to fuel her proposal, perhaps she could illuminate the path to success. As they continued their conversation, Emily listened attentively to her mentor's advice. They discussed integrating emotional narratives with hard metrics to forge a compelling case. Each strategy she considered became a thread, weaving together her past lessons with the present challenges she faced. Her mentor emphasized the importance of building a community of allies who would support her vision. People are drawn to authenticity, her mentor insisted. Craft your narrative to reflect not just the data but the passion behind it. Share your why with them. In doing so, you create connections that can't easily be dismissed. With each step deeper into this exchange, Emily's conviction solidified. Her internal landscape began to shift from trepidation to enthusiasm. The prospect of presenting her proposal transformed. This was more than just numbers, this was a movement, a chance to inspire others through her vision and personal story. When the meeting concluded, Emily stood to leave, her heart racing in a way that felt exhilarating rather than frightening. The cafe's exterior greeted her with a burst of sunlight that mirrored her newly ignited self-belief. She decided then to structure her approach differently. Instead of merely presenting, she would engage her audience in the story that threaded through every statistic. As she walked, thoughts flooded her mind, a whirlwind of ideas for structuring her presentation, weaving narrative with data seamlessly. What if she opened with a personal account of failure, showcasing her journey to understanding the need for change? What if she framed the metrics not just as numbers but as transformational milestones? The possibilities seemed endless, and her heart quickened at the thought of sharing it. Weeks passed as she poured herself into the proposal, molding and shaping it into a living document that truly represented her vision. She enlisted the help of trusted colleagues, sharing drafts and obtaining feedback. For the first time, Emily welcomed critiques not with defensiveness but with gratitude, celebrating these interactions as opportunities for improvement. However, with every ounce of progress, a creeping concern lingered. Was she overreaching? Would her narrative fall flat before the seasoned eyes of executives interested only in cold, hard facts? The what-ifs persisted, but Emily reminded herself of her mentor's words. Challenging her convictions was no less valid than reinforcing them. Finally, the day arrived for her to present. The conference room buzzed with anticipation. Emily stood before the assembled audience, a stack of papers in her hands. A knot twisted in her stomach, a familiar foe she resolved to confront. Shifting her weight, she looked up. Today, I want to talk about not just metrics but what they mean for each of us involved in this journey, she began. The moment she started to speak from the heart, she felt a warmth envelop her, a sense of belonging, a connection forming with her listeners. But just then, a voice from the back of the room cut through her flow, echoing her deepest fear. Isn't this a bit too emotional? We need more than anecdotes, don't we? Her pulse quickened, the question threatening to unravel her hard-earned composure. It was the moment of truth she had anticipated yet felt unprepared for. Questions flooded her mind. Was she not strategic enough? Did she miscalculate the bravado she had built? In that instant, Emily had a choice to make. Would she retreat behind her insecurities or embrace her fear, trusting in the process that had led her here? The weight of expectation intensified as she steadied her posture, allowing herself to absorb the moment. Emotion, she began slowly, meeting eyes across the room with newfound confidence, is at the core of our decisions. It drives change, just as data does. Together, they can reshape our future. A charged silence fell, every person in the room hanging on her conviction. Emily felt a shift beneath her feet. This was not just a presentation but a declaration of her commitment to her vision. As she pressed on, opening herself up to the dialogue that would unfold, she realized the truth. This was not merely about her proposal. It was about her evolution into a leader unafraid to confront discomfort. And in that moment, another realization washed over her. The real confrontation awaited not just from others but within. Could she continue to push past the barriers that self-doubt formed? The stakes were higher than ever. Emily felt the tension rising as she prepared to navigate the impending tumult, an inevitable confrontation with her own limitations and the resolve to transcend them, one compelling story at a time. Would she break through, or would she falter when it mattered most? The answer lay just ahead, waiting for her to seize it. Emily stood at the podium, her heart racing with both anticipation and trepidation. This was her moment, a culmination of months spent navigating both personal and professional challenges. With her proposal in hand and the eyes of her colleagues upon her, she was determined to share not only data but the very essence of why her vision mattered. As she began, the familiar knot in her stomach twisted tighter, but she pressed on. "Today, I'm not just presenting numbers," she asserted, steadying her voice. "I'm sharing stories of people like us nurses who strive for excellence in a system that often overlooks the essence of care." The room felt charged with uncertainty as she wove her narrative together, punctuating statistics with poignant anecdotes. She recounted her experiences, her earlier disappointments, the weight of self-doubt, and finally, the fiery determination to create a mentorship program that would reshape their nursing culture. When the skeptic's voice cut through with an all-too-familiar question about the emotional weight of her presentation, Emily felt her resolve waver momentarily. The fear of rejection loomed large. Would they dismiss her passion as sentimental fluff? But a new realization blossomed within her. This was not merely about winning approval, it was about authentically expressing her commitment to change. With clarity ringing in her mind, she boldly replied, "Emotion is not our enemy, it's our ally. It fuels motivation and drives connection. When we share our vulnerabilities, we foster understanding and empathy, essential ingredients for effective mentorship." A ripple of murmurs traveled through the room. Emily could sense the shift. She began to see her colleagues not just as seasoned professionals but as individuals craving connection, just as she once had. Uniting data with heartfelt stories transformed her presentation from a simple proposal into a collective call for action. After her presentation, the silence was palpable. Just as she had anticipated, the questions began. But this time, they were not laden with skepticism. Instead, they carried genuine curiosity and engagement. As she navigated through inquiries, her confidence solidified. Rather than crumbling under scrutiny, she found herself embracing it, drawing strength from the conversations that unfolded. Each question inspired a deeper level of dialogue, allowing Emily to further refine her vision. The collegial atmosphere shifted into something palpable, an acceptance of the idea that they could transform their nursing culture together. By the end of the meeting, hands shot up, voices chimed in, pledging support and enthusiasm. Her vision was no longer an isolated dream but a shared ambition igniting the room. By the meeting's conclusion, Emily felt weightless, the burdens of inadequacy lifted. She had tapped into a potential she never fully believed she possessed. She was now an advocate, a leader, someone worthy of her colleagues' respect. The journey through doubt had borne fruit, revealing not just her capacity for leadership but her ability to ignite transformation in others. As she left the conference room that day, Emily was met with applause and words of encouragement from her peers. The recognition was humbling yet empowering. No longer the invisible nurse juggling multiple roles, she had demonstrated her place in the professional landscape. Months later, as Emily stood in front of a group of mentors and ments initiating her program, she realized the extraordinary depth of her own growth. Her voice was clear, confident, and respected, a beacon for others to find their strength. The path had not been without its difficulties, but she had conquered each obstacle, layering experiences of resilience and determination to build a legacy of care. This was her moment of achievement, one she had envisioned yet scarcely dared to believe could manifest. Emily had stepped boldly into her destiny, transforming from a woman defined by her fears to a resilient leader inspiring change, proving that every setback is indeed a setup for a comeback. She had not only claimed her voice but also forged an environment where every nurse could confidently thrive. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this transformative journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.